Welcome back from break. Everyone, I hope got caffeinated and recharged. And we've got a session now, and then we'll be cutting to lunch, and then another afternoon of really great programming. I hope everyone's been enjoying the conference, learning a lot of things. For those that hadn't heard, my name is Kristen Glushon, and I'm track chairing this. We'll get everyone just a second to move in, and then I'll do an introduction for this talk, which is going to be very exciting, a favorite brand I know among many. Great. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce Alex Goldberg, who is the Senior Innovation Steward at REI Co-op. How can I mess that up? REI. He is the resident subject matter expert on spatial computing and a business analyst focused on emerging technology in their enterprise architecture organization. He's got a deep focus on how the co-op can leverage XR technologies to usher in a new era of capabilities that will enable their members to head out and explore the surrounding natural world. So please welcome Alex to talk about XR and the great outdoors.
All right. Hello. You guys can hear me? Great. Thank you for making sure that you spelt out REI, because every now and then I'm on a call where somebody's phonetically pronouncing it Ray. I'm like, I hear Ray for the third time. Like, are you saying Ray as in REI? So it's Recreational Equipment Incorporated. Those are abbreviations. So, all right. Let me get my cards in order. Thank you very much. So who am I? I'm Alex Goldberg. I'm the Senior Innovation Steward. I'm also a business analyst in our Enterprise Architecture org. It's a small group that is dedicated to innovation inside of the co-op. I was supposed to be here with Peter Newell. He couldn't make it. He's kind of my partner. He's a program manager in that group, and we work together and complement each other very nicely. I have an interesting background in technology. I actually started in VR in 1996. Right down the street, so to say, in San Francisco, I worked at a VR arcade for like $9 an hour. It was my first job when I moved to SF. And we used the virtuality pods. If you guys remember those from the VR arcades, the rings that you stood in and you had one controller. I think the controller weighed more than my MacBook Pro, so we really came a long way since then. And this is just such a special time for all of us, collectively speaking, to have these capabilities finally be available to us. I've been fantasizing about this my entire life, and it's just so exciting to be a part of it all. In fact, there's interesting things that I experience in VR. One of them is I play a lot of games, and me and a great group of guys play Population 1 on the Quest. Has anybody checked that game out? Okay, well, it's great. You should. It's a lot of fun. And I think about conversations that I've had, and I'm like, where was I talking about this? Was it in a dream that I was talking to somebody? It's in VR, so we're starting to experience new things as a people that I don't think we ever experienced in our history, as in our human evolution. And it's kind of neat, those kinds of, kind of an aha moment about you're realizing something new, sort of a confusion, and you get to the bottom of it, and those kinds of epiphanies are very interesting. Okay, so let's get on with it. So REI was founded by Lloyd and Mary Anderson in 1938. They wanted to source quality ropes and axes that weren't available, so they had to get them from Europe, and they formed a co-op to do so. Our first full-time employee was Jim Whittaker in 1955, and in 1963, he was the first American to summit Everest. When I showed up at the co-op in 2014, it was right after our CEO, Sally Jewell, left, and she went on to become Secretary of the Interior in the Obama administration. So a lot of pioneers of all sorts at REI that I'm just very proud of. So there's a few things I'm going to cover today. I'm kind of going to be touching on how we got here, which was really Innovation Days, which is our hack fest that we have, where a lot of the early spatial experimentation happened at the co-op. And then I'm going to talk about some of the projects we have in flight, which is mostly the two things I'm going to cover are our store scans as well as our digital twins. And then I'm going to touch on some exciting things we have in the works coming down the pike. I'm clicking. Okay. Actually, first I'm going to touch on the Trifecta of Awesome. And it's one of the things that makes REI special. And it's a combination of the fact that we are values-driven, and our core philosophy is that we go further together. So that's just a great place to start and to work together as a team. A lot of us are passionate about the outdoors. I remember when I showed up, I had a coworker, it was my first day at work, and he ran through the night. He did a 50-mile endurance run. He left his family at a campsite and ran through the night to get to work. I'm like, wow, these are the people I work with? Awesome. By the way, I'm a passionate cyclist, and that's my thing. And a lot of people have their passions, and you know it at work. And every now and then, back in our office days, I would see somebody on crutches, and I hope that person had a speedy recovery, but I know that they were out doing something, and it's kind of neat when you see that and know it. The third part is a strong desire to advance our respective interests, technologically speaking. So a lot of people have those two bullets, and a few of us, like myself, have all three of them. So we are at this place that's values-driven. We are all passionate about the outdoors, and we also have our interests that we are moving forward in. For me, it's spatial computing, but for somebody else, it's UX design or machine learning. Okay. I think the batteries might be low on this. All right, here we go. This is Innovation Days, and the top left is the virtual shoe try-on that I debuted about, almost 3.5 years ago now. I was friends with Alex Nevedovsky. He founded WANA, and they were the first company that did the virtual try-on in an app-based format. They weren't even leveraging ARKit. They wrote their own algorithms to do this. On the right, there is me and my friend Pablo posing with a Sumerian model that is from Amazon Sumerian, and it was part of AWS service that was a web-based tool. So I like learning different technologies and building things with them. In that screenshot, that model recited product information after we scanned the barcode to kick off that experience. And through SSML, the synthesized speech markup language that was part of Sumerian, I was able to use a form of like HTML tags to insert gestures. And she did like the warm heart thing at the end when she was saying that she stayed in the tent and the tent kept her warm. Next, we're going to jump to the, whoops, that went. Okay, cool. Nope. We want it to go quick once and then quick again. 2 clicks. Great, leave it there. Thank you. So this is a demo of a concept of Postit Notes that a manager could leave at the end of their day for people to show up and see in the morning. So they were proximity detection based. This was built with the Torch SDK. Torch was a company based in Portland that made a pretty awesome rapid prototyping tool that even had some stuff that we tried to publish with, and you'll see that a little bit later in the presentation. It was a really neat concept, but wiring up the user's name and profile to like marrying the technology to the Active Directory credentials was a little problematic. But this got us thinking about ways that we can use spatial computing to be better operators internally. All right, so now on to the what is currently in flight section. So we started doing store scans spring of 2020 when we closed our stores due to COVID. I was experimenting heavily with Matterport throughout a lot of our stores and building all kinds of proof of concepts. But come time when we shut our doors, everyone was pretty stoked that we had something ready to go to enable a way to share that we are COVID compliant, and also a way for you to check out the new store in a virtual sense. Since then, every store that we have opened has had a digital twin created. There's about 15 of them now. Sunnyvale, right down the street, which was our Mountain View store that we relocated to Sunnyvale. That is one of our newest ones. Boca Raton, Florida, Billings, Montana. Every store since spring of 2020, so about 15 of them now. This is what that experience looks like. This is the store page. When you click See Inside in the center, it launches the virtual store tour. You zoom in from the dollhouse view, which is a nice effect. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Matterport from the real estate space. That's kind of where that's their sweet spot, but there's a lot you can do with the technology. Those light blue matter tags, they invoke AR, and I'm going to, later on in the presentation, you'll see that up and running. There's a similar technology out that leverages the Matterport capabilities from a company called Obsess. They create 3D virtual stores that are shoppable. The technology is really powerful, and there's lots of different ways that you can leverage it. We do all of our stuff in-house, but what are we going to do next with these in-store scans? I mean, it was a way for us to disseminate that we are COVID friendly. Are we going to throttle that for a retail experience? We're figuring that out. Would we do something like Obsess for a specific store? Would we create a mock fake store that is constructed and dedicated to an end Matterport experience? Or I personally like the idea of cycling through our flagship stores each year, picking a different one for the Matterport 3D scan. So we're figuring that out. I urge you guys to check out the Ralph Lauren Southampton virtual experience. I think that is powered by Obsess. It's beautiful. It's an amazing take on retail with a 3D capture capability. All right, so, whoops. You could stay here, that's fine. Yes, please. So when I first started experimenting with spatial, the DC screamed out with many AR, XR use cases. It's just a wealth of opportunities in the distribution center. So my presentation isn't just physical retail in our stores or digital retail. There's also a strong component of the backbone of retail operations, which are the DCs. The opportunity to ensure that we are safety compliant, as well as virtualizing training by way of capturing that is really powerful. We have a new sorter. It's called an OSR sorter. It's this wild machine that moves things around and sorts them so people can put them in their proper boxes. That is set up in our DC3 in Phoenix. So instead of having to fly people to Phoenix to get trained on that, we are leveraging these scans to do so. In fact, the amount of money that we save through this project by saving money on airfare is paid for virtually everybody's time on the project, which is kind of neat. So that's Sumner on the left. And if you click one more time, sir, you'll kick off the video on the right. But don't click twice. And that's the pocket sorter of the OSR machines in the background. There's a video on the right, so if you advance the slide just one more time, don't leave this screen, but just get the video going. Okay, great. So this capability is pretty awesome. It provides leadership with a way to plan the floor space more effectively, and it's a big win. Which caught me surprised was hearing that just having the matterport scans keeps people more engaged in meetings. So purely going to 3D keeps people more engaged. It's very powerful just to see things in that respect, and you're able to connect with your audience for planning purposes. I hear things like, this is actually a quote, "Alex, we're too busy working on our projects to know about these technologies. We need you to keep us informed." So this touches on, I think Kathy Hackle wrote a piece on the need for an XR officer. So in companies like REI, we need somebody who understands these technologies and is able to socialize and be able to upskill teams and operationalize people, like a warehouse management team. They don't understand, most of them do not understand spatial computing. So I think we need to start to see dedicated teams to help make them make that leap. Companies like REI need an XR solutions team really dedicated to spatial solutions specific to the enterprise. You know, I was mentioning Obsess before, what they do for retail. After doing an extensive amount of scans in store, at the DCs, it makes me think that perhaps there's an opportunity for an Obsess just for logistics and WM capability. So perhaps a startup idea out there. Here's a walkthrough of the way that I integrated our Dozuki SOP, the standard operating procedure software, into the Matterport scan. This is our Phoenix DC. And you get multimedia information pushed to it. All right, on to digital twins. I'm going to skip ahead because I'm running out of time here. Yes, so pesky pop-ups. I'm all about web AR. I think that the quicker you can get people in and get the launching the app out of the way, the better. I see like wine bottles that you need an application to look at the AR experience. I think most people aren't going to install the app. You need to be able to leverage a QR code to do that. I know QR looks kind of nasty, but it gets the job done. Regarding the nuances that I'm mentioning here, like shadows look better on Android than iOS for WebXR, but I'm not able to do the animations the way that I would like to and have them look good with high frame rate in Android like the way that I can in iOS. So there's interesting trade-offs. Plus, Android's a fragmented system with lots of different hardware manufacturers. Like we got a WebXR project back from our vendor, and the X button to close the model was right in the spots where the Google Pixel 4a's front-facing camera was. So we needed to relocate that. There's a lot of nuances, and it's a QA-intensive experience. So this is an early web AR project that I built. This was with the Torch SDK. And we wanted to leverage the rapid prototype and publish it, which we did specific to iOS in an app format. But again, I'm pretty nuts about having everything be web AR, and let's get the app out of the way, at least for product views. And I think that it is a very powerful experience to have a chooser in front of you with multiple tints, so you can start comparing things and do all that in AR. AR product views tend to be a cul-de-sac, which is a fancy word for saying a dead end, because you usually have to go back to the PDP after you look at a model. Eventually, I'd like to have 3D model comparisons and also be able to check out all in AR. So we're getting there, people. And by the way, can you go back, please? And you need to click it again to invoke the video. Thanks. So these models are almost 2.5 years old. They're okay. They were okay at the time. Let's look at what we could do now. So most people set up tents outside. I like scattering them about my apartment. I like putting them in little places. I find that to be a fun a fun thing to do. So look, it's my tent in my, right on my Innovation Days t-shirt, actually. So that's the REI Grand Hut 4 that was built by Seek. They're amazing. John Chaney is their CEO. Jim Rampton and Kyle have helped us out greatly in building these models. That's our new co-op e-bike. There's 7 different colors that model's available in. So I like to keep my models no greater than 10 megabytes and one simple interaction for WebAR. So the simple interaction on the tent is removing the rainfly. The simple interaction on the bike is swapping out the fenders and the bags. We were able to bootstrap all of our AR projects the past 2 years through an emerging technologies promotion. That's a tie-in to the print mail bundles that we send out. So if you're a retailer that sends out paper catalogs, REI has beautiful catalogs. I just love keeping them on my coffee table because they're just so gorgeous. We were able to save around 1.5% to 3% per promotion, which we do 3 times a year. And that's 60 to 70 grand for a company like REI. So we were able to pay for the models and everybody's time on the project. There's a lot of money there for the teams we needed to spin up internally. And by the way, there's, I noticed in section B, there's number 5, the multi-mail piece marriage mailers. I noticed that the other day, and I've been looking at this slide for a while. So if you're in a wedding planning space, I think you could also leverage this. It's neat to see the U.S. Postal Service mentioning augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality in their flyer, their paperwork. That's kind of cool that the USPS is mentioning mixed reality. All right. Okay, back to Matterport just for a second. And what we're doing here is inside the Matterport scan of a store, I have a QR code that will invoke AR. So I think this is really neat. There's something very special here. I enjoy Matterport scans on my desktop. It's a new technology, but I still think it's a desktop-first technology. It runs pretty good on phones and tablets, but when you're experiencing it on the desktop, you could click the Matter tag that is a QR code and then invoke the AR. So you could have the tent that you literally pulled out of the 3D store scan. I think that's really cool. And then if you click the Shop the Tent button, you don't need to go back, it's okay. All right. So if you click the Shop the Tent button, it'll launch you to the PDP and you could purchase the tent. So let's move on to further down the trail. Here's the exciting stuff. This is stuff we're kind of announcing and making public to you guys right now. This is Project Toppo. I mentioned it on a podcast. Robert Scoble and Irina Cronin wrote a book, I think it was called The Infinite Retina, and they had me as a guest on their book launch, and I mentioned Project Toppo. I wasn't supposed to, but we mentioned it. So now it went public, so I have permission. REI gets tight-lipped about the way we do certain things, but so I could share it with you guys. It's a wayfinding application for rock climbing. Back in the day, or still, it's very commonplace to use a paper map at what they call the crag. It's where you're setting up to do your rock climbing, and you'll have this crumpled up piece of paper that has routes, but why don't we throttle that with AR? And we could make it social, where you could leave notes, like watch out for this one section, the moss is a little slippery, or be careful where you park, the sheriff is a jerk, stuff like that. I also believe that this has a bright future, and I'm very interested in sea kayaks, using a similar type of wayfinding solution with tidal information and directions. So more to come on that. All right, here's our 3D tent assembly. No one has seen this or really even heard of it, so I don't know, maybe consider yourself special. So here we go, that's me over there. And what we did is we 3D scanned the tent assembly in various stages of being assembled. And in that we have matter tags that show you the way that things look when you set it up, which is incredibly helpful. There's going to be a fifth step, which is the tent designers actually speaking to the user, explaining some of the inspiration that they had when they built the tent. So I think that that's a really neat way to instruct people when they're out in the wild. And this will be available for offline use for iOS. So you'll have a thing that downloads onto your phone or perhaps goes into a special section of your REI app. I think this could be a game changer. And I think supporting AR offline for out in the wild, there's a lot of opportunities there. All right. And some closing thoughts. Let's go to that card real quick. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with a solution like Matterport. I also consider Matterport the gateway drug to XR. So for around $2,500, you could get the Matterport, and then there's a annual licensing fee for their hosting solution. I'd like to see multi-model comparison experiences in AR. I demonstrated that one that I built in our early web AR solution. I'd like to see more of that stuff. And I'd like to see the entire e-commerce experience in AR, including checkout, as I mentioned. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for 3D collaboration, for teams that work remotely to interact with each other using something like Gravity Sketch, and where they could in real time communicate, as well as more real time interaction with people on our factory floor. Thanks. I think we're out of time. I went over into our Q&A session. Any questions, people?
I get the sense you can't talk too much about it, but your rock climbing wayfinding app, so the intent for that is to work like outdoors to replace like a guidebook or to replace the website that people always use, Mountain Project, that kind of thing, so that you can actually point it up there and identify the route with notes.
Right.
So like a crowd-sourced information about.
Absolutely.
Okay, amazing. Do you guys have a timeline for it?
Nothing that I could speak publicly about.
Is there any kind of like partnership with those guidebooks or Mountain Project at all?
Mountain Project was actually a part of REI up until about a year ago. We did some restructuring when COVID hit, and we needed to do a lot of restructuring. So
no.
We are still very friendly with them, but it would be something internal. I'm also, since you brought up Project Toppo, I like the idea of AR pop-up stores. So you could be there at the outdoor location and maybe have something relevant, perhaps a procedurally generated pop-up store that has relevant information for the area that the user is around.
So cool.
Thank you.
Hi, you mentioned digital twins and like your early web AR. What have been some of the problems, or what have you guys have struggled with? Because we don't see 3D all over the e-commerce site yet. So what are like some of the reasons like you're not using it everywhere for all the products?
Good question. I wish we were. In my perfect world, every freeze-dried ice cream sandwich, bike basket would have a digital twin. Every item that we would sell in REI would have a digital twin. And actually, I envision the Matterport experience where the user is perusing the store in the virtual space. When they get close to items, those 3D digital twins would start rotating around them. So a lot of us are hyped on the idea of digital twins. We just need to get buy-in from the rest of the company. There's a lot of initiatives in flight at REI. I didn't see anything on the agenda for the conference, but it would be neat if there was a guidebook on how to get leadership to be on board with. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
So I'm a huge fan of the brand, and obviously XR enthusiast. So this topic really hits home for me. I guess my question, similar to the previous question, I was wondering: is this a bottom up, a top down? Is it maybe a mixture of both? And you mentioned like this XR team or an XR lead. Is that something that is like a large organization? Is it something that is kind of grassroots?
Okay, so I wish that XR team would be a large org. It isn't. I think in other places they are light years ahead of REI, like Lowe's, for instance, and they're doing some very impressive stuff over there. I'm sorry, what was the other part of your question? Okay, on to the next person. Oh, I would say bottom up. That was it. Definitely not top down at the co-op.
Hi, Alex. I was curious because REI is one of the main values of REI is to get outside. So how does XR inspire you to get outside?
How does XR personally inspire me?
Yes.
Although I do like doing the AR models inside my apartment, I also love going out into the woods and setting AR stuff up.
Okay.
Does that inspire me to go outside? I want us to do things that I don't know what those things are yet, but I want to do them.
Yeah, just curious. Cool, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alex. Let's give him a round of applause. And we'll see everyone back.